What is the most embarrassing thing you were ever caught doing? My dad probably still thinks he caught me watching pornography on my laptop when I was around 17. Here is what actually happened. One evening, I was sitting on the sofa in my bedroom watching gaming videos on my laptop. I had only recently discovered group Let's Play channels, including channels like Achievement Hunter and Funhouse, so I had been spending a lot of time browsing through their videos. During that particular trip through YouTube, I came across a video uploaded by Machinima. It featured the guys who would later become Funhouse before they were officially known by that name. The game they were playing was Japanese, which may already give you an idea of where this story is heading. It involved a girl with extremely large personalities swimming through the ocean while trying to collect something. Honestly, I cannot even remember what the objective was. As a curious 17-year-old, the thumbnail caught my attention. With a slightly embarrassed grin, I clicked on the video. Almost immediately after the video started, my dad suddenly swung my bedroom door open. My laptop screen was completely visible to him. I could have calmly opened a new tab, I could have closed the browser. I could have done almost anything that would have made the situation look less suspicious. Instead, my brain completely stopped working. I awkwardly slammed the laptop screen down onto the hand I had been using on the touchpad, then looked up at my dad with the most shocked, guilty expression imaginable. His face changed from normal to suspicious. "Are you watching something bad?" "No, I'll see." I then struggled to open a new tab using the touchpad while carefully lifting the laptop screen just enough for me to see it, but not enough for him to see what had been playing. Eventually, I showed him the new tab. "I'll see." He looked at me with a mixture of anger and disappointment, said nothing, closed my bedroom door and walked away. So as far as my dad knows, he caught his 17-year-old son watching pornography. In reality, I was just watching a YouTube Let's Play. I was once caught in the middle of explosive diarrhea in the bathroom of a golf pro shop. And when I say explosive, I mean it hit the wall. All over this wall. And yes, to answer the obvious question, I am now banned for life from that particular shop. Let me back up and yes, pardon the very unfortunate pun. For several years, I had been dealing with stomach pain. It kept getting worse and worse until, like a stubborn guy who kept pretending everything was fine, I finally gave in and went to the doctor. The news was both good and bad. My gallbladder had to be removed. So naturally, I had surgery to get the little troublemaker taken out. Fun fact, that surgery was also my first and only experience with morphine. It resulted in me asking the nurse, in ridiculous detail, about her underwear while my wife and little girl were right there. Very classy moment from me, obviously. After the gallbladder was removed and I started recovering, the pain was gone. Great news. Unfortunately, so was my ability to properly regulate my bathroom emergencies. And yes, that is apparently a real thing. Your gallbladder helps with digestion, and it also plays a role in how bile and other lovely internal substances move through your system. Without it, certain foods you used to enjoy can leave your body much faster, much more violently, and with far more force than you ever expected. You can probably already see where this is going. So there I was at the park, pushing my little girl on the swings about 30 minutes after eating at a Chinese buffet. Not just any Chinese buffet either. Oily, greasy, spicy Chinese buffet. Basically every single thing my gallbladder, back when I still had one, would have stood up against and refused to tolerate. After about 5 minutes at the swings, I felt the first rumble in my stomach. No problem, I thought. I could wait. 10 minutes in, I was sweating. Surely the feeling would pass, right? It did not. I looked around, no public bathrooms, no convenient bushes, no nearby restaurants where I could quietly commit a crime against plumbing. I was gritting my teeth and standing in some desperate ballet-like position, trying with everything in me not to have a disaster right there beside the swing set. Then in the blink of an eye, the situation went from, I kind of need to go, to, I am absolutely about to ruin my life. I had a moment of perfect, terrifying clarity. If I did not leave immediately and find a bathroom, I would forever be remembered as the guy who sold himself while pushing his little girl on the swings. That was not the legacy I wanted. So off I went in a blind hurry, moving as fast as any person can move while clenching with every ounce of strength they have. Thankfully, I did not have to go far. There happened to be a golf pro shop in the park, the kind of place that catered to well-dressed people who golfed there. Perfect. I waddled in, gave the clerk the weakest little smile imaginable, and rushed straight toward the only single-stall bathroom in the place. Yes, that bathroom. The one clearly marked customers only. I ignored the sign completely, along with the confused look the manager gave me as I hurried past and slammed the bathroom door shut behind me. And then I saw it. Pee on the toilet seat. Disgusting. Any other day, I would have wiped it off and handled things properly. But on that day, I did not have 4 seconds to spare. I had 0 seconds. The countdown had reached the final moment. The bomb was about to go off. So in my panic-filled tunnel-vision mind, I made a decision that seemed reasonable for about half a second. I would hover. I would simply hover and hope for the best. Unfortunately, my body had other plans. It was like one of those old cartoons where the cannon is pointed one way, then suddenly swings in the opposite direction at the exact moment it fires. And then it happened. All over the walls. Disgusting, I know. In hindsight, and yes, that pun is also unfortunate. Hovering while carrying a loaded weapon was not a wise choice. Between the timing, the pressure in my gut, and the ridiculous position I had somehow assumed, the explosion did not only go into the toilet. It hit the toilets. It hit the back of the toilets. It hit the wall behind the toilets. Basically, everything within a full half-circle behind me was punished. I sprayed that back wall with complete and unbiased destruction. And the worst part, it came with a dinosaur-level fart. Loud, violent, impossible to ignore. At that moment, I knew I was finished. I cleaned myself up as best I could, pulled up my pants, and tried to flee the scene of the crime. But it was already too late. When I opened the bathroom door, the manager was standing right there on the other side. What could I even say? Really, what does anyone say in that situation? That was already there when I came in. No, there was no saving it. I was caught. I then spent the next extremely uncomfortable 10 minutes trying to explain myself, apologizing repeatedly, and somehow sweating even more than before. I even offered to clean the mess myself. In the end, the manager photocopied my driver's license and banned me from the shop forever. Which is a real shame. They had a wonderful selection of polo shirts. When I was 18, I worked at a gas station in a rough area. The job itself was not easy, mostly because of the kind of customers who came through. We had plenty of regular workers who stopped in for lunch, but we also dealt with a lot of people who were drunk, high, aggressive, or just looking for a reason to complain. Inside the store, we also sold hot food, including chicken. One day, during the lunch rush, a heavy-set woman came in and ordered some chicken. She paid, took her food, and left. A little while later, she came back inside, upset and complaining that the pieces of chicken she had received were too small. At that exact moment, the store was packed. It was lunchtime, and construction workers, warehouse workers, and other people on short breaks were lined up trying to get food quickly so they could eat and get back to work on time. I actually liked those workers because they were usually respectful and just wanted to get in and out. Compared to some of the other customers we dealt with, they were easy. But this woman cut in front of the line and started complaining about her food. I asked to see it. When she showed it to me, the pieces did not look small to me at all. I told her, "Ma'am, this looks fine." She said the person she came with had gotten bigger pieces. I explained that not every piece of chicken was going to be exactly the same size. She got angrier and demanded bigger pieces. I told her she could go back over to the food area and ask if they would switch it out, but since she had already taken the food out of the store, I was not sure they would do it. From our side, that meant wasting perfectly good food. That only made her more upset. She started saying she was the customer and that the customer was always right. I told her she would have to wait until I finished helping the other customers in line. Then she demanded to speak to my manager immediately. That irritated me badly. I was young, impatient, and already had a short fuse. I was annoyed because she had been fine with the food when she bought it, but the moment she saw someone else with slightly bigger pieces, suddenly it became a problem. The store was busy, people were waiting, and she was holding everything up over chicken. So I had to stop helping the line and go find my manager. He was not in the office, so I checked the walk-in cooler where he was stocking drinks. The cooler was loud because of the air running, so when I opened the door and stuck my head in, I yelled his name to get his attention. He asked what the problem was. And because I thought it was just me and him, I let my frustration spill out in the worst possible way. I yelled something cruel about the woman complaining over the chicken, insulting her weight and saying she did not need bigger pieces. Then I turned around. She was standing right there behind me. She had followed me to the back instead of waiting at the register, and because the cooler was so loud, I had not heard her come up behind me. She had heard every word. I cannot even describe how embarrassed I felt. She looked angry, but more than that, she looked hurt. That was what made it worse. If she had yelled at me, maybe I could have argued back in the stupid way I used to when I was young, but she did not really explode. Her face just changed, like what I said had cut her deeply. My manager asked what I had said, and she repeated it back, saying something like, My fat ass has a problem. I froze. I had never felt so embarrassed in my life. I did not mean for her to hear me say that. I was venting, but that did not make it okay. She was supposed to stay up front, but she had followed me, and I had not noticed because of the cooler noise. My manager came out to speak with her. By then, she was not yelling anymore. She looked sad and humiliated. It was like she was too embarrassed now to even keep asking for bigger pieces of chicken. I felt awful. So I went back and made her a big box of chicken with extra pieces. I brought it to her and apologized. She kept her head down and tried to hand me back the smaller box, but I told her to keep it because we would just throw it away anyway. She took the food and left, still looking sad. Afterward, my manager got mad at me for giving her more chicken. I told him I would pay for it. He said she did not need more food and that it was her problem now. But every time I think about that day, it still bothers me. I was frustrated, young, and angry, but she did not deserve to hear me talk about her like that. The look on her face stayed with me. I can laugh about this now, especially since it happened nearly 30 years ago, but I still feel the need to keep it anonymous. Not long after graduating from university, I moved to a new city and started my first real job. I did not know anyone there at first, but I got lucky. Most of the people I worked with were also young, single, recent graduates, so it did not take long before I had a solid group of friends. We were all pretty social, and at some point we met a few young women who were working as au pairs, basically European nannies in their late teens or early 20s. They eventually became part of our friend group too. I soon started dating one of them, and before long things became romantic. The only problem was privacy. She lived with her host family, though really it was just the host mother and the kids since the parents were separated. That meant her place was almost never an option. I had an apartment, but I also had roommates, so while my place worked sometimes, it was rare that we had it completely to ourselves. Then one beautiful weekend, her host mother and the children went out of town. Suddenly we had this large, very nice house entirely to ourselves. The possibilities were endless. So naturally, we made the most of it. At one point, we were in the family room, completely lost in the moment. I was reclined in a la-z-boy chair and she was on top of me. We were very much in our own little world, not paying attention to anything else. Then, completely out of nowhere, the host father walked in. As I mentioned, he was separated from the host mother, but apparently he still had access to the house. He came in through a back door into the adjoining room. My girlfriend reacted instantly. She launched herself off me and ran out of the room so fast that, from my point of view, it was like she simply vanished. 1 second she was there, and the next second she was gone. Which left me sitting there, completely naked, fully exposed, in full eye contact with an older man I had never met before. In his house, in what I later realized was probably his favorite chair. To make matters worse, the sunlight coming through the window created an unfortunate dramatic effect, making the whole situation even more impossible to ignore. Luckily for me, he had also seen my girlfriend running out of the room, so he understood what was happening almost immediately. He did not stick around to ask questions. He simply made a very quick exit back outside. It turned out he had only stopped by to grab some tools from the garage that he needed at his new place. From outside, he called out and asked us to let him know when it was safe for him to come back in. I cannot say for sure, but I suspect he may not have wanted that chair in the divorce after that. When I was almost 19, I was home from school for some reason. Around that time, new neighbors had just moved in next door. Since we were in Florida, we had one of those screened-in backyard pools that almost everyone seems to have down there, and I decided to go skinny dipping. While I was in the pool, the woman who had moved in next door came over to introduce herself. She looked like she was probably in her late 30s or early 40s, and she had a drink in her hand. She waved and said hello. I waved back, said hello, and asked how she was doing. She said she was fine or something along those lines. Then she finished the rest of her drink and said she needed a refill. She asked if I wanted one too. I told her I would not mind a drink. She asked if I was old enough. I looked young, so I figured there was no way she was actually going to bring me anything alcoholic. I asked her what she thought, then turned around and dove under the water. She was gone for about 5 minutes, then came back with a fairly tall glass. By then, I was pressed up against the pool wall, trying to hide the fact that I was completely naked. The drink she brought was a Washington apple made with Crown Royal. I tried it and told her it was good. She said it was her favorite. Then she said it was really hot outside and asked if I minded if she joined me in the pool. I said sure. She was wearing a sundress. She sat down, put her feet in the water, then took off the dress and placed it on a chair by the pool. I must have looked visibly shocked because she said that since I was naked, she figured she might as well be too. I took a big sip of my drink and said, okay. So we properly introduced ourselves. She told me she had seen me get into the pool naked and had wanted to see what I would do if she came over and said hello. I admitted that I almost went underwater and pretended I had not heard her. She said she was glad I did not. I stayed near the wall and she was about 5 feet away from me in the water. I set my glass on the side of the pool, pushed off from the wall and swam past her underwater. When I came up on the other side, she said that felt good. Then she came over to me and pushed my head under the water. I popped back up and grabbed her under the arms like I was going to dunk her. She wrapped her legs around my waist. At that point, I was nervous because she was beautiful, and with all the movement, it was pretty obvious that I was reacting to the situation. I tried to dunk her a little, but she started laughing. I asked why she was laughing, and she said she never thought this was what would happen. Then she just looked at me, still wrapped around me with her arms and legs around me. Things got more tense between us. She shifted slightly, then finished her drink and placed her glass next to mine. After that, she let go and started swimming away. She had a very nice figure, so I swam after her. She moved slowly enough that I could easily catch up. I reached around her and she turned back and kissed me quickly. We were in the deeper end of the pool, probably around 5 feet deep. We started play wrestling in the water and things became more physical. Our hands started wandering and the situation was definitely crossing a line. Then I heard the sliding glass door open. My dad was standing there looking at us. He asked who she was. I told him she was our new neighbor. I am not going to use her name, just in case she or her husband ever comes across this. As my dad walked closer, he realized we were both naked. He told us we needed to get dressed and get out of the pool. I got out, handed her my towel, and put on my swim trunks. She dried herself off, put her dress back on, and walked back to her house. My dad looked at me and said she was a bit old for me, wasn't she? I just shrugged and said, I guess. About a week or two later, she and her husband came over and introduced themselves to my parents. I came home maybe 30 minutes later, though I do not remember exactly how long it had been, and they were all talking together. I have no idea what they were discussing, but shortly after I got home, the neighbors went back to their house and my parents went inside ours. A few weeks later, my dad mentioned that she was married. I tried not to pay too much attention, but he made it clear that I should not have done what I did. More happened between the two of us later, but this story is only about that embarrassing moment. Several years ago, when I was 16, I skipped school. And yes, I got caught. Just kidding. What actually happened was that I skipped school and decided to smoke some leftover weed my parents had accidentally left behind after having people over in the backyard. Most of it was just random leftovers, but there was one decent piece that still had enough left to use. So I called the school, got the secretary, and told her I was having stomach cramps. It was the kind of excuse that did not require a doctor's note and sounded believable enough to get away with. I was doing well in school, and my parents were pretty relaxed about attendance anyway, mostly because they were former hippies and did not treat every missed day like the end of the world. We lived near a nature trail, so I took my bike and went there using a back route where nobody I knew would see me. Once I got there, I rode along the path until I felt like I was far enough away from the road. During the summer, that trail got a lot of traffic because it crossed the entire state and people liked testing themselves on it. But on a weekday earlier in the year, there were barely any people around. So I smoked, got very high, and started thinking that it would feel amazing to take off all my clothes and walk around completely naked. So that is exactly what I did. And honestly, it felt great. I was sitting on a log, enjoying the freedom and the quiet, completely convinced I was alone, when suddenly a dog came crashing through the bushes. Right behind it was a little old lady. I barely had enough time to react before we were suddenly face to face. So there I was, completely naked, startled, embarrassed, and very obviously not prepared for company. She looked at me and said, "Oh my, I wasn't expecting this." I immediately started trying to explain. I thought I was alone But she just cut me off gently and said, "No need to explain, dear. I was a bit of a sun worshipper myself in my youth." I was this close to saying, "Well, get worshipping too, ma'am." For one second, I almost said something stupid back. Thankfully, I did not. She took her dog and went one way. I went the other, found my clothes, got dressed as fast as possible, and took the long way home. It was not the most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me. But it was definitely close.